2021. And why is that period relevant? That period is relevant because the pandemic started for us in March of 2020. That's when we first had our cases and went into lockdown. And the restrictions were eased, protocols and the borders reopened in October of 2021. And as a consequence, we thought that that was the appropriate period to look at in terms of individuals. You may ask, why is that important? That is important because there's some categories of persons who might have come on board after October 2021, meaning that they fall into a category of workers, but they were not necessarily employed during the period that we fought this pandemic. And so the cutoff period is important. It covers March of 2020 to October 31st of 2021. And we have seen the value in the amount of $2,000, which again is not sufficient to compensate, but it is not intended as compensation. It is intended as a token of appreciation. And so I would want those who receive it to understand what the thinking is behind it, because compensation is when you owe somebody money for work they've done, and we would have paid salaries on time and in full. This is not something that we had promised or committed to, but it is something that we feel is appropriate given the circumstances and given the fact that some people really went above and beyond and really put country above self. And I just want, ladies and gentlemen, to emphasize that point, that at a time when we called upon our people to do more and give more, some responded. And the thinking is that those who responded ought now to have a token of appreciation. Some give a plaque, some give a certificate. We've decided that this amount of $2,000 is a small token to say thank you. Now, who are the categories? Immigration officers stationed at the Vance Amory International Airport. Customs officers stationed at the Vance Amory International Airport. Frontline officers of NASPA and dispatchers of the Ministry of Tourism stationed at the Vance Amory International Airport and at the water taxi pier. All COVID-19 certified taxi operators who were involved in moving passengers to and from the various quarantine sites, and all COVID-19 water taxi operators who were involved in moving inbound and outbound passengers to Nevis. Now I want to pause here, because you will realize quickly that the taxi operators and the water taxi operators are not government workers. But the truth be told, that Nevis could not have recovered from COVID-19 were it not for the service provided by these two categories of persons. And so when we considered this honorarium, we decided that we had to include individuals who were shoulder to shoulder with government workers on the front line, even though they are not employed to the government. And of the certified taxi operators, I'm advised that while all were invited to assist in transporting passengers, only some responded positively. And I would want to thank them. The water taxi operators, remember when the borders did reopen, we had to transport persons from St. Kitts who landed in St. Kitts to get them over to Nevis. And these water taxi operators, again, were on the front line. They were interacting with guests. They had no idea whether guests could be positive. They had no idea. And they performed admirably. They took that risk. And again, we felt that they ought to be included. Now, these categories may not have been included on St. Kitts because St. Kitts, of course, doesn't have the water taxi, etc., as we do. But we recognize that they were critical to our response. And as a consequence, we have included those two categories of persons. Let me continue. Officers of the Emergency Operation Center, and the Health Emergency Operations Center located at the Disaster Management Office. And incidentally, members of the press and members of the public, we had a group of dedicated Nevisians who practically lived at Long Point for the duration, meaning that they spent most of their time there. Now again, I want you to imagine that in the height of this pandemic, not knowing what to expect, lockdowns and curfews all around, that these people left their families at home and were ensconced at the Health and Emergency Operations Center at Long Point to protect us. And so we feel, again, that this token of appreciation should be extended to them. We have also agreed that the nursing and other auxiliary staff at the Alexandra Hospital, our health centers, and the mental health unit, that those too who were involved in the fight and were on the front line, that they should benefit. Allied staff at the Ministry of Health, who also assisted with the COVID-19 response, all truck drivers and field attendants at the Solid Waste Management Authority who were directly exposed to the virus while facilitating the efficient disposal of household waste during the period of heightened alert. And let me just remind us that the people at Solid Waste continue to go around, even to the quarantine sites, to pick up the necessary garbage, and we feel that they ought also to be included in this honorarium. Officers of the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Tourism who assisted with training and certification to facilitate the reopening of borders. Let us remember, colleagues, that these individuals had to go to all the hotels, all the restaurants, inspect them. And we had so many training sessions as we sought to get back on our feet as to what the protocols were. And so we thought that they should be included. All members of the first cohort of the Compliance Task Force based on Nevis, and we have added officers of the Social Services Department who, again, went out and were, in fact, engaging with clients during the period of the pandemic. And so those are the categories. The various departments will be asked to compile their lists. And so this is not an exercise that has been done by the Cabinet. The Cabinet exercise was really to come up with a policy. And so the various departments will be asked to compile their lists. We will know already who the taxi operators were that stepped up to the plate. We know already who the water taxi operators were who stepped up to the plate. And so we would have all of that sorted. I'm advised by the Ministry of Finance that the payment should be made on or before November 30th. And so I am very pleased to bring some closure to that in terms of categories of workers and in terms of who will benefit. So the cutoff date is on or before November 30th. I'm not sure what day that is, but it will be on or before that date in terms of a payment. Let me, since I'm talking about payments, we have had, of course, the Honorable Prime Minister addressing the nation and indicating that he has authorized a bonus payment, double salary as we like to call it colloquially, to public servants for this year. And he has authorized the payment of that on November 22nd. I would wish to publicly extend thanks to the federal government because through our dialogue and discussions, in fact, I spoke to the Honorable Prime Minister just this morning, we have established that these benefits, this windfall, so to speak, of a double salary, that it will be extended to the people of Nevis as well. And so I would want to extend thanks because this is part of the ongoing conversation about a fair share of the country's resources being available to those who are in Nevis as well. We know that 1/3 of the population resides here, and the Honorable Prime Minister has indicated with great alacrity, no need for persuasion, that it was the intention that this applies across the board. And so public servants in Nevis can look forward to their double salary on the 22nd of November. Those who are receiving an honorarium can look forward to the receipt of their honorarium on or before the 30th of November. And in light of the 3 VAT days that have been announced federally and the various concessions put in place for Christmas, we are hopeful that this injection of additional monies into the local economy will lead to more spending, will lead to more economic activity. And whilst we are hopeful of that, those who know me know that it would be remiss of me if I didn't say also to our people, try to save a little something out of it as well. Don't spend all. Put a little something aside. Treat it as money that you didn't intend to make. Money as you didn't intend to have. Treat it as if you won the lotto. And put a little something aside. So we expect some expenditure, naturally. We expect people to have a joyful Christmas because they have an additional bit of money in their pockets. But I'm also asking our people to be prudent. Don't spend all and in January morning you have difficulty and NEVLEC is coming knocking and the water department is knocking and your school fees need to be paid. Be prudent. You know I preach always from this rostrum that we want our people to be responsible. But I think that's excellent news. And again, I think that this augurs well for the ongoing collaboration and partnership between the federal government and the Nevis Island administration and continues what we have started in terms of this new government, of a new dialogue, a fresh start when we engage with the federal government. And so far, it has yielded good fruits for the benefit of the people of Nevis. And so we look forward, therefore, to our public servants receiving that emolument. And we thank them, of course, for their continued hard work. And we are hopeful that these payments spur our people to even greater productivity. That these payments say to them that they're valued, our public servants, and that they are encouraged to work even harder for the money that they receive, but work even harder because they are public servants. They serve the public. And so I'm pleased to make those announcements this morning and to say that based on those announcements, I believe that persons certainly should be in a better position financially to enjoy their Christmas season. Incidentally, as I say that, I'm told that the abattoir is asking for those who want smoked hams and chickens and smoked meats, that, you know, they're doing all this for Christmas. So you could order now, because for Christmas you should have a little extra something in your pocket. And so we hope that you will spend some of that at least with the abattoir and get your Christmas specials. Rather than all this imported stuff, we have local, good local stuff available at our abattoir, and we ask you to patronize and to be a part of that. Let me shift gears then and speak to the Ministry of Health, because we have some really fantastic news in health. We would want to welcome an ICDF volunteer from Taiwan, Dr. Yu Tang Chen. Dr. Chen holds a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's in brain and mind science, and a doctorate in neuroscience. He will be assigned to our mental health unit for a period of 1 year, where he will provide his expertise to us in the areas of mental health awareness, advocacy, and sensitivity training, data collection and analysis. Now, I don't think there's a secret that my administration has made mental health a significant pillar of our health response. We are very proud that we have been able to open a standalone mental health facility at Prospect, and we are and will continue to invest in providing the necessary support for those requiring the services of our mental health experts. And so this is yet again part of that effort, and I certainly would want to commend all of those who are involved. The Honorable Junior Minister, Hazel Brandy Williams, who leads that team, the Permanent Secretary, forgive me, I almost said Honorable Permanent Secretary, she is Honorable, Shalisa Martin, and of course the entire team who have continued to provide the work and the necessary service to the people of Nevis. And so we welcome Dr. Chen, and we look forward to working with him over the next year. Another big announcement. On October 28th, the Ministry of Health, in collaboration with ENT and Allergy Associates of Florida and the Nevis Community Foundation, facilitated the first ever ear, nose, and throat clinic at the Brownhill Health Center. Now, I think this is important, ladies and gentlemen. A total of 155 persons were seen, the eldest being 97 years old and the youngest being 3 months old. The team also donated to the Alexandra Hospital 1 newborn screening audiometer and 1 child and adult audiometer donated to the Community Health Nursing Services. We would like to take this opportunity to publicly express our thanks to Dr. Todd and Hope Bloom, B-L-U-M, Dr. Mark Widdick, and Dr. Daniel Daub, that's D-A-U-B-E, Daub, for facilitating this activity. We also want to thank local ENT specialist Dr. Siobhan Henry, who journeyed over from St. Kitts to be a part of this activity and to observe and to obviously benefit from the immersion with these experts who came in from the United States. I would also wish to commend the dedicated and hardworking community health staff and Dr. Tivan Brown, who worked alongside the visiting team. Now, what I think is of even better news is that this will be an ongoing initiative. It is the intention to have the ENT specialists here 3 to 4 times each year. And we have used the model of the eye care clinic for this particular engagement. And so this is a very difficult to find area of expertise. Ordinarily, our people would have to travel to Antigua and other places when they have difficulties with their ear, nose, and throat. And so we only now have 1 specialist, and that is Dr. Henry in St. Kitts. No specialist in this area in Nevis. And so we partnered with ENT and Allergy Associates of Florida, which is the largest group of ENT specialists in the state of Florida, and they have now committed to being here 3 to 4 times a year to provide this service to the people of Nevis and St. Kitts for free. And I think that that is a significant development for us in terms of pushing healthcare forward. As you know, ladies and gentlemen, we have just returned from Taiwan. The Deputy Premier, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, and I were invited by Prime Minister Zhu to be a part of his delegation on his first official state visit to our dear friends, the Republic of China, Taiwan. We had an excellent visit, and while there, we were afforded the opportunity to interact with students there and those from St. Kitts and Nevis who are residing in Taiwan. And I was so pleased that as part of that cohort, we had 3 professionals from Nevis who are there in Taiwan since October 19th, taking part in a 6-week training exercise as part of the ongoing public health capacity building for the prevention and control of metabolic diseases in St. Kitts and Nevis. They are Dr. Adicia Tyson, medical doctor, Karen Whiskey, who's a registered nurse, and Janicia Pemberton, who's a dietitian. And they seem, if their parents and family members are listening, they looked well, they're doing well, and they are enjoying their experience in Taipei. During the training program, they will have the opportunity to interact and observe instructors, the medical environment, as well as healthcare management approaches in Taiwan. In fact, we had a good session with them at the Veterans Hospital in Taipei, where these youngsters were all there with a cohort from St. Kitts as well. There's 6 of them all together, 3 from St. Kitts, 3 from Nevis. And we thank again our dear friends, the Republic of China, Taiwan, for their ongoing assistance to us in so many different areas, but specifically in the area of health. Now, on their return to the Federation, these individuals will be considered seed instructors, where they will incorporate with the project coordinator to facilitate workshops and train other staff in St. Kitts and Nevis to strengthen our care in relation to NCDs, non-communicable diseases. As part of the St. Kitts Nevis Moves Nevis chapter, the month of October saw the successful completion of 2 events. the Nevis Knockout Private versus Public Obstacle Course, and the annual Half Island Road Relay Walk, sponsored by the Nevis Cooperative Credit Union. For the obstacle course, the private sector won, with Mr. Glenville Foy placing first in a time of 3 minutes and 20 seconds, Orion Jones second, and Manuel Mills third. For the Half Island Relay Walk, Legacy Sajora took first and second place. Team Hike and Team Fit tied for third place. We congratulate all who took part in these two events. The Department of Gender Affairs, in commemoration of International Day of the Girl Child, October 11th, awarded one girl in each primary and secondary school on the island of Nevis the Department of Gender Affairs Girl of Excellence Award. This award was presented to the girl in each school who was deemed by their teachers to be most respectful and helpful, involved in community activities and volunteerism, and is an outstanding role model for their peers. The awardees were Zenobia Johnson of the Ivor Walters Primary School, Zekaija Doe of the Cicely Brown Integrated School, Mahira Hanley of the Charleston Primary School, Ariel Herbert of the St. Thomas's Primary School, Jaida Gilfillan of the Elizabeth Pemberton Primary School, Kiara Hanley of the VOJN Primary School, Ogere Brown of the Maud Cross Preparatory School, Natika Nanton of the Joyston Liebert Primary School, Akaila Hanley of the Nevis International Secondary School, Bianca Williams of the Gingerland Secondary School, and Kalia Huggins Simmons of the Charlestown Secondary School. I have named them because I think it's important. It's an important initiative by the Department of Gender Affairs, and certainly I would want to congratulate all of the awardees. The inaugural chapter of the Boys Mentorship Program was officially launched by the Honorable Islane Phillip, Federal Junior Minister of Gender Affairs, at a ceremony held on October 18th at our Malcolm Guichard Recreational Park. The Boys Mentorship Program is an entity of the Department of Gender Affairs which aims to empower youth in our community to make positive life choices that enable them to maximize their academic, social, and professional potential. The 5 pillars of the program include group training sessions, community service, job attachment, academic scholarship opportunity, and the main catalyst for change, the one-to-one mentoring relationships forged through the matching of an adult community volunteer with a high school age youth. The chapter is hosted at the Nevis International Secondary School, where 9 boys are participating. Some other important updates. We are incredibly pleased, ladies and gentlemen, to inform you, the members of the press and the general public, that the new 128-slice Philips CT scan machine is now on Nevis, fully assembled, calibrated, and installed at the Alexandra Hospital. The specialists will be in country the week of November 28th to provide training. So we had a group that came in to do the installation, and we will have a group now coming on the week of November 28th to do the training. Once that is done, it will mean that the island of Nevis will now be in possession of only the second piece of equipment of its type in the entire OECS region, and the first of its type in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, providing a diagnostic tool that we never had before, available now not only to the people of Nevis, but to our brothers and sisters in St. Kitts as well. And I think that this is a quantum leap forward for healthcare on the island of Nevis. I would want again to register my deep appreciation to the Drahi Foundation, which partnered with us to make this possible for the island of Nevis. And I think we are all the beneficiaries as we continue to work together to promote better health care for our island and for our people. In terms of the Alexandra Hospital and the ongoing expansion works there, we have, I'm told, as of this morning, 85% of or so of the windows have been installed. We have the ongoing painting of the exterior that should be done in about 2 weeks. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to read. It's difficult, sometimes I can't read my own handwriting. Yes, the interior will be done by drywall will be the interior, and so I am advised by the contractors that the exterior had to be enclosed in order to allow them to proceed with the drywall work on the interior, because they didn't want the interior being done in rain and all that coming through open windows. And so what we have sought to do is to create a more conducive atmosphere there, to create something that was aesthetically more pleasing to the eye as people pass by. And so the painting was done, and the interior work will commence in earnest once the enclosures are completed and we can start the reconfiguration in terms of the sheetrock on the inside. We are currently compiling a list of equipment to be used in that new wing when we hope to have it fully commissioned and opened in the new year. And so I would want to update you there. I should have had some additional information, but forgive me, I will have to provide that afterwards. But we are providing the information in terms of the expenditure to date. I didn't get that before I left. PS, perhaps if you can assist me and reach out to the PS Health. She was sending me that number, but I didn't get it before I left. So if I can get it while I'm here, I'll report. If not, then I will certainly provide that to the press afterwards. But the amount that has been spent to date on that particular project, which is definitely ongoing and for which I think we've made good progress. Let me shift gears and speak to tourism. The Nevis Tourism Authority, and this for me, ladies and gentlemen, is really something that we all should be proud of. The Nevis Tourism Authority has started a digital billboard campaign in Times Square in New York. So if you happen to be in New York and you're walking on Times Square and you look up, you will see Nevis being displayed on the big screens there at Times Square. And as part of that 3-month display, we are also offering a, how should I put it, a giveaway. Is a sort of, how do you describe it now? I have lotto on my mind, but it's not lotto. It's a competition for a giveaway, for a holiday, luxurious trip for two to experience the island. We would want to thank the Four Seasons Resort and Golden Rock. They're partnering with us on that giveaway for a 1-week visit to the island of Nevis. And we have, of course, Nevis up in lights at Times Square. Never happened before, history in the making, and a lot of Nevisians living in the New York area telling me that they've actually gone just to see it for themselves. I would want to thank, of course, the Nevis Tourism Authority for this innovative move. The CEO there, Mr. Devon Liebert, our own, who has really been doing an excellent job since he has assumed that position, and of course the board, chaired as it is by Mrs. Pamela Martin. The Nevis Tourism Authority and the St. Kitts Tourism Authority will join forces for a joint roadshow promotional event in the United Kingdom. That is from November 21st to 25th. The teams gather agents and tour operators for intimate, hosted dinners at luxury venues in Hertfordshire, Kent, and Surrey. In addition to hosting top tour operators and travel agents, the NTA will also host an event in London with a number of luxury travel writers from various publications in the UK. All of these roadshow events will comprise a networking session on arrival, dinner, presentation on the latest tourism developments in Nevis, and updates from hoteliers who will be represented. The NTA will also host something that they refer to as Nothing Like a Nevisian Holiday. This is an event at the Hermitage Plantation Inn on Saturday, December 10th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Nothing Like a Nevisian Holiday gives patrons the opportunity to enjoy a range of Nevis holiday experiences within a 2-hour period. The Artisan Village vendors, just below us here at our Artisan Village, they'll be hosting a Christmas night market at the Artisan Village at Pinner's on that same day, December 10th, Saturday, December 10th, from 5 p.m. until midnight. A wide variety of traditional Christmas cuisine items and folklore performances will be provided. All visitors and locals are cordially invited to attend as the Artisan Vendors Association strives to keep the Christmas spirit alive. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in the tourist season, and I want to report to you that the cruise season for us will start with our first call on November 27th. when the Star Flyer will dock in the waters off Charlestown. Between November 2022 and April 2023, we expect about 47 cruise calls, which are expected to bring just over 18,000 visitors to our shores. Now, for those who would immediately say, oh, that's a small number, let me, of course, remind you that we have never invested in the cruise industry on the island of Nevis. That has not been our mainstay. Nevis's tourism model has always been based on what we call heads in beds. Our mainstay has always been trying to attract people to stay at our hotels because we feel that that is where we get most bang for our buck. And I'm very pleased that the hotels are reporting very robust bookings for the season, and I'm hopeful that absent some natural disaster or other difficulty, that will bear spectacular fruit for all the stakeholders in tourism. But our cruise industry, small as it is still relevant to us because it gives particularly stakeholders like our taxi drivers an opportunity. We also have learned that St. Kitts, next door, which has invested very heavily in cruise, that they expect over 1 million visitors this year. And if that is the case, we expect, of course, that we'll benefit from that as well. In fact, just yesterday, Pinnace Beach had well over 300 visitors to the beach from individuals who would have come from St. Kitts and come over. And so the bars at Pinnace and the restaurants at Pinnace are doing a robust business based on that as well. So we expect to benefit from the large number of cruise passengers coming into St. Kitts for the day trippers and the people who want to come over and experience Nevis. But in terms of those landing on Nevis, we have 47 calls expected and just about 18,000 passengers. Now, for the taxi drivers and artisans and other stakeholders, the first call is the 27th of November. We then have a call on the 5th, Sea Dream, 9th, Sea Dream, I'm sorry, let me start again. 27th of November, we have the Star Flyer. December 5th, we have Sea Dream 2. December 9th, Sea Dream 1. December 11th, Star Flyer and Windsurf, so we have 2 calls that day. December 20th, Spirit of Adventure. December 21st, Sea Dream 2. December 23rd, Sea Dream 1. December 25th, Star Flyer. December 28th, Windsurf. December 29th, Sea Dream 2 and Seabourn Ovation. So we have 2 calls on that day. Now, in preparation for the 2022-2023 cruise season, the Ministry of Tourism will be hosting a seminar for all taxi operators on the island of Nevis on Tuesday 22nd at NEPAC. To accommodate the taxi operators, they will be given an option of attending either the morning session from 8:30 in the morning or the afternoon session from 2 p.m. All taxi operators are asked to make a special effort to attend and to be punctual. We are also in the process, ladies and gentlemen, of revising the Nevis taxi rates, which were last officially revised in 2007. So it's been 15 years since the rates were revised in Nevis. The Nevis Taxi Association and the Queen City Taxi Association have been consulted regarding the changes, and we hope to finalize and publish those new rates shortly. The proposed new rates will be shortly ratified, as I've said, will be in effect in time for the high season. Once implemented, taxi operators will be required by law to abide by the official taxi guide. On airlift, a perennial problem that we know we've had, I'm proud to announce that we have had now advanced discussions with Cape Air regarding returning to Nevis after an hiatus. Cape Air, in fact, have been interested in coming back for some time, but they had an unusual problem, and that is post-COVID, they could not find pilots. Apparently, there's a shortage of pilots. And so that has been their problem. But we are talking to them. They hope to be back soon, shortly. And they're going to provide a service to St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands. KP has code share and interline agreements with major U.S. carriers, including JetBlue, American, Delta, and United. And so we hope that not only will this service give our people in the Virgin Islands an opportunity to come home directly to Nevis, but it will also allow us to use St. Thomas as a possible portal if we're going on to the United States and are doing a connection. As we know, sometimes you can get significant savings if you were to fly through one of those major hubs, such as the U.S. Virgin Islands, rather than seeking to fly direct out of St. Kitts. One of the difficulties also is sometimes you simply cannot get a flight out of St. Kitts because of the high demand. Once details are finalized, the service should commence within the next few weeks. I'm also pleased to say that we are in quite close discussions with Winair to see if we can attract Winair back to Nevis after a few years when they have not flown here. The demand on that St. Martin-Nevis corridor is quite high, and we know that Winair flies into St. Kitts but not into Nevis, and so we are speaking to them about how they can come back. I would only make this plea from this rostrum that if and when we get these airlines flying again into Vance Amory International, I am really beseeching our people to use the service. To use the service. Winair, for example, can provide connections to Air France and KLM going out of St. Martin to Europe. They can also provide connections to American, JetBlue, Spirit, and all of these airlines that go into St. Martin to the United States. And so for us, what we're seeking to do is provide as many avenues as possible for our people to travel and our guests and tourists to come to us. And so that is what we are seeking to achieve, and I'm pleased to make those announcements for your consideration. In agriculture, very quickly, World Fisheries Day will be observed on 21st November, and the Department of Marine Resources, in collaboration with the Nevis fishermen, will be hosting a week of activities to celebrate World Fisheries Day. I have already told you that for Christmas you can get your smoked meats. Well, I have the list here. Smoked hams at the abattoir for Christmas, and other smoked meats such as smoked ribs, smoked beef, smoked chicken, and rotisserie chicken. You're asked to put in your orders at the abattoir by calling 669-8726 or 664-5765, and to do so quickly because they say they sell out quite quickly. But these are all local products, done here, raised by us, cured by us, being sold by us. And I keep saying that if we're serious about food security, we have to grow more of what we eat and eat more of what we grow. And while I know people have the option, I am hoping that you will choose to get your Christmas treats from the abattoir as opposed to going to the supermarket and getting them there. We are approaching the official end of the hurricane season. That ends on November 30th. And we have been thus far spared by God from any significant damage. We had some heavy rains, as we know, when Tropical Storm Nicole was in our area. And those heavy rains, we experienced almost 5 inches of rainfall within a 24-hour period here in Nevis. There was understandably some damage to our roadways, and that damage has been estimated, and I have the precise figure, I'll give it to you, at $538,000 EC dollars. And that was largely due to our road network and some ameliorative work that we'll have to do in the road network, particularly in that area just past Cotton Ground. And so we will have to do some work in that area. I would want to commend, however, Minister Spencer Brand and his team for how quickly they responded, that almost immediately after the rains had subsided and the water had subsided, they were able to repair and make that road passable. So we will engage in the reconstruction of that road very shortly, and that is at the culvert at Fort Ashby and Funky Monkey in Cades Bay, where we suffered some damage. Just to give you a snapshot, we also saw some damage. Got south of Gin Trap was blocked, got north of the Wally Taxi operation was blocked. Nisbet Bridge showed some signs of damage, Camps Bridge, Barnaby, debris buildup, Indian Castle, main access to agriculture, Orchard. We had some difficulties, but thank God nothing that is beyond our capability to deal with And we're hopeful that for the remaining days of this hurricane season, we have no more storms, and we're equally hopeful that we don't get any surprises with any storms coming in December this year. Let me shift quickly, and I promise I'm almost finished. Ministry of Communication and Works. First of all, let me take the opportunity to say farewell to Dr. Ernie Stapleton, who has retired after nearly 30 years as a public servant. Of those 30 years, the last 18 were spent with the Ministry of Communication and Works as permanent secretary. Dr. Stapleton is moving on to a position with the OECS, and we would want to wish him all the very best in his future endeavors. He has served, and he has served well. And Dr. Stapleton, I want to thank you for your service and wish you all the very best as you move on to the next phase of service at the regional level. The Ministry of Communication and Works, in collaboration with the Nevis Post Office, held an award and retirement ceremony on Monday, 14th November. Recognition was given to 15 individuals who have left the service. They are Dr. Stapleton, whom I just mentioned, who was also the patron for that event, Miss Andrea Simon, Mr. Orville Alcindor, Mr. Richard Brown, Mr. Godwin Brown, Mr. Wilson Busu, Mr. Vincent Claxton, Mr. Eugene Nicholas, Mr. Hildred Davis, Mr. Percy Maynard, Mr. Norton Cornelius, Mr. Dwight Dorr, Mr. Carol Jeffers, Mr. Vernon Wilkinson, and Miss Lenore Smitten. We want to wish them all the very best in their retirement and thank them for their exceptional service to the people of Nevis over all these years. Water Department continues to do work in Butlers and Bath Village Road projects and the Island Main Road project, which is now commenced. It commenced in full on November 7th. It is the intention of the Nevis Water Department on the Island Main Road project, and that is the project from Cliff Dwellers over to Ex-Petrol. That project, they intend to install some 6,500 feet of 6-inch water mains and 1,000 feet of 4-inch water mains. As you know, it is a policy of this government that when we do roads, whether they're mains or feeder roads, we also upgrade the water distribution system. So we are proverbially killing two birds with one stone. While we're doing the work, we upgrade. So everywhere you see roads being done, the water system is also being upgraded at the same time. And this will be no different. Very, very proud of Minister Brand and his team. We've installed a new water storage tank at Pond Hill, Zetland's Pond Hill area. There was a previous tank there. It had a capacity of 160,000 gallons. That has been dismantled and replaced now with a $250,000 imperial gallon glass-fused tank. And that is currently being installed. It is from Aqua Store, and the professionals are here. We expect completion to be done by December 2022. That will ease, certainly, the burden in this area and make it far, far easier to provide water to individuals in that area from Pond Hill coming down into Beach Road and Church Ground and Brown Hill, as the case may be. We are also, as always, in close collaboration with the Japanese International Cooperation Agency, JICA, and they are looking to see how they can help us in terms of reducing the power that we use to run our pumping systems. Because our wells, of course, the water has to be pumped, and that is a tremendous cost to us in terms of the electricity that it costs. And so we have one member of staff from our water department, forgive me, who's currently in Barbados undergoing some training. We wish him all the very best. In terms of public works, the Bath Village Rehabilitation Road project, that is ongoing. I think that if you take a drive over there, you'll see the expanse and extent of work that is being done. The feedback from the people in Bath has been very positive. Like all of these projects, we have sought to use people from the area of Bath to do the walls and the allied works, and we have sought to give most of that work to persons there. They have my commitment that that policy will continue, and so when we move into specific areas, we hope that the artisans, the masons, etc., in those areas would get the benefit of doing the work, and no different in Bath. The work is proceeding, and I'm quite pleased. We are waiting, I'm told, on some utility adjustments by the utility companies, Nevlec, Flow, Digicel. Butlers, progressing very nicely as well, and we hope that we will be out of Butlers very soon. The work there is really coming to an end. We are doing now excavation on a section of roadway from Domino College to Butlers Health Center, and we expect by the next reporting period that that section of roadway should have been graded, curbs installed, and paved. Again, we are waiting on the utility companies, Nevlec and Flow, to complete their utility changes. So sometimes if you find, and I know we get criticized because people say, oh, they're doing the road and the electricity pole is still somewhere in the road. That is simply because the utility companies sometimes have not yet come to change the location of those utility poles. But I can assure you there will be no paving of utility poles into the road. They will be moved, and we will ensure that we have proper roads as we have been doing. The Methodist stone wall is now complete. We thank the Methodist Church and its members for their patience. Footbridge in Brick Hill, that is almost complete, and we hope to have that done shortly. The Island Main Road project, I mentioned that earlier. The contractor has been mobilized. They're mobilizing the equipment and personnel to commence the groundworks, and you shall see actual construction starting very shortly. We would have mentioned earlier the Island Main Road damage from the storm, Tropical Storm Nicole, and as I said, that came at a cost of $538,000. The asphalting of the affected area, approximately 170 feet, is yet to be completed, but we hope to do that very shortly. The culvert at this particular area in Cades Bay, Fort Ashby, is still intact, I want the public to know, and was never compromised. So there was no issue there, but we did have some damage to the asphalt, about 170 feet, which we will replace shortly. And as I said, again I say, the loss there was about $538,000. Ladies and gentlemen, I have sought to provide as comprehensive a report as I can. I hope I have not bored you too much, but certainly if you have any questions, I'll be prepared to take those questions now.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Elke Hewlett, Department of Information. I know budget season is coming up for both the federal government and the NIA. Has a date been set for the budget address and likewise the budget debate? And can you give us any kind of a glimpse into what the plans and policies and the expenditure and what's not for 2023 might look like? Tax-free, you know, the usual things that we look forward to hearing. While we're on dates, has a date been set yet for the elections in Nevis? And how prepared is your party to take on an election? We're hearing it's in December, so we don't know if we're having a Christmas election. So those would be my questions. And your PS has been so gracious as to accommodate some of the media in St. Kitts. WinFM has submitted its questions. They're asking for an update on the geothermal project in light of the visit of the team from the CDB. And also, WinFM would like to know what are some of the main challenges facing the economy on Nevis and what plans are in the works to mitigate those challenges. While I'm at it, I'll just go straight to SKN Newsline. They're asking, does the CCM have any concerns regarding the electoral office and its procedures or practices in the context of the NRP recently holding a protest against the office? And we also know that there is a new supervisor of elections who has just stepped into the shoes of Mr. Bailey, Elvin Bailey. So is there any concern at all having a novice now facing an election? And two, you already gave an update on the hospital, so that would be it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hewlett. I really appreciate the questions. Budget dates, the technocrats are looking at the budget. As we know, that is an ongoing exercise. I think they've had a number of meetings already. Those meetings will continue. We have not yet fixed the date, but certainly we would advise the press as soon as we are able to in relation to the budget. I don't believe a date has yet been fixed in St. Kitts either. So we will have to await word from St. Kitts as to when the budget over there is going to happen. Plans and programs in the budget. Certainly we will continue our infrastructural program of road development. We have committed to undertake in the next budgetary season the road from Westbury, Fountain, Mount Lily Road. That's a very important bypass road if there's any problem along the main road. And we know that that road needs to be done. So we've committed to that. We've also committed to a road through Church Ground and into Hamilton, which is also a critical feeder bypass road. And so we have committed to those two major road projects that we will undertake in the new year. So we are budgeting the necessary resources for those two road projects. We will, of course, and I've said that we have ambitions to do a South Coast Road to take us from Long Point to Hanley's Road. We find that there are thousands of acres of land there, and I liken that road and the impact we think that road will have to what the Southeast Peninsula Road did in St. Kitts. It opened up a whole new area of St. Kitts for development, and that's what we're hoping to achieve through that South Coast Road. So we're already seeking to have the design and engineering done on that particular road project to open up that entire area for development going along the South Coast. Those who know Nevis will know that that whole area is unpopulated. There are no houses, there's nothing over there from Long Point essentially all the way back to Hanley's Road. There is hardly anything in that area. So it opens up thousands and thousands of acres for commercial and economic activity that has currently been locked off because there's no proper infrastructure. So we expect that to continue. We expect to expand our social safety nets and to continue to support our people who are most in need of support. We intend, of course, to continue to expand our health care, to complete our hospital, which has had some delays, but which we are quite pleased in terms of the progress to date. And we expect, of course, to be able to inaugurate that new hospital and to have a state-of-the-art facility available for health care on the island of Nevis. It is an investment which we have looked forward 30, 40 years in terms of that particular hospital. And so we are doing it deliberately because we think that that is a significant and important investment for our beloved island. And so we expect that in our budget we will lay out our plans and programs as usual, lay out our expenditure, and most importantly, we will have our audited accounts available. And I say most importantly because there was a time when the government failed to live up to its constitutional responsibility of providing audited accounts. And so there was no clear indication during the years 2006 to 2013 what the finances of the government were. We have fixed that, I'm proud to say. We have now restored constitutional rectitude to our financial affairs. And for many who keep saying they don't know where money has been spent, I tell them, learn to read a budget. If you can read the budget, if you can read the audited accounts, then you will see each year where money is spent, what it was spent on, whether there was overspending. It is all there. And the auditors will tell you quite clearly whether there was overspending or underspending as the case may be. So I continue to urge our people not to be misled by the base propaganda, but to look for the information because the information is readily available. And this government has not hidden anything. We have put the information as the law requires and as the Constitution requires. We have put audited reports in the House and laid those documents in the House each and every year that I've been Premier. We have adhered and complied with the constitutional mandate. And so I am quite proud of that, and I think that if our people want information, if the press wants information, simply pick up the audited report, pick up the budget documents, and you'll see all expenditure, all income, where it went, who it went to. It's all there. And so I don't understand sometimes the constant sound and fury about not knowing. Those who don't know are those who don't want to know. In terms of an election date, Ms. Hewlett, I'm praying about it. We will see how that goes. Geothermal energy, I think we've made good progress. We have been involved. P.S. Daniel, who's here, he has just returned from a GEOLAC conference in Mexico, where we were engaging with geothermal experts, investors and experts across the world. I think you spoke at a panel there to update as to what's happening in Nevis. Nevis, I think we have good momentum now with the geothermal project. The CDB is firmly on board. The IDB is firmly on board. And in fact, we have a consultation that occurs tonight at the Anglican Church Hall. This consultation tonight is for residents of Hamilton, because that's where the geothermal plant is going to be. And then tomorrow night, Friday night, at the same location, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., there's a consultation for the wider general public. Of course, I'm sure anybody can go to the consultations. I don't think that will lock you out because you don't happen to live in Hamilton. But we are inviting individuals to go, and persons who are interested to go, hear for themselves. Sometimes when we hear from the politicians, we start to feel like, oh, this isn't real. But go and hear from the experts. Go and hear from the people from the CDB and the IDB, because they are the ones who are leading the process, not us. And so they're the ones who will be there to take your questions, hear your comments and concerns. And so we urge the public to go out to these consultations tomorrow night, tonight, Thursday night, from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Anglican Church Hall in town, and tomorrow night, Friday night, from 6 to 8 p.m. at the same venue, the Anglican Church Hall, again in Charlestown. And the professionals from the IDB and CDB will be there. This is part of their due diligence exercise, because we advise that the reason why there's so much activity, a flurry of activity now, is not because an election is coming. The reason there's such a flurry of activity now is because the CDB board meets in December, on the 9th of December. And so we're trying to get all the information together to get before them on the 9th, so that the funding could be released and we could have a full run at this geothermal coming in January. So that's where we are. They've also, of course, initiated a search for a drilling company to do the production drilling, and we are hopeful, if all goes well, that we'll see some real activity in the sector in the coming year. And I'm looking for it because I want the jobs, I want the realization of geothermal. It's a whole new industry, a whole massive diversification away from currently the tourism, which is the only thing that we have. And so we are quite anxious to develop that, just as we've tried to develop the movie industry, for example, as another string to our bow. We have learned through COVID that it is dangerous to put all of our reliance on tourism. And so we're trying to develop alternatives so that if we were struck by another pandemic or some other difficulty, we can have other industries that are there to support us. And incidentally, we are now looking beyond just generation of energy from geothermal. We are now looking at ammonia and perhaps producing fertilizers here. We are now looking at hydrogen and the export of hydrogen, again as a byproduct of geothermal. And so we are seeing now allied industries also developing. And could you imagine a Nevis where we now have cheaper energy? And incidentally, we are now paying upwards of 30 cents US per kilowatt hour for diesel generated energy. Geothermal promises that it can come in at about 10 cents per kilowatt hour. So if you see that differential from 30 plus cents, sometimes as high as 36, 37 cents, now to 10 cents, 9 or 10 cents, you mean that you have potential for significant savings for our people. You have the potential to attract industries that need large amounts of energy, but low cost energy. And we feel as well that you have the spin-offs that we have spoken about. So imagine with me, if you will, a Nevis which is entirely powered by green energy, low-cost green energy, where we have removed all reliance on fossil fuel energy. We have reduced our consumption to a point where our carbon footprint is near zero. We would be, in one fell swoop, doing our duty to the world and to the climate, and at the same time providing a better quality of life for our people, diversifying our economy, ensuring that our brothers and sisters in St. Kitts also benefited, because this project is intended to also benefit the people in St. Kitts with lower costs, cheap, clean energy. And so it ticks all the boxes if we can get this done, and it is truly revolutionary. Imagine with me, if you will, a Nevis where we now have electric cars, electric scooters. We can afford to have them because the energy is cheap and we can power them up. And so at nights we have our cars charging just like we charge in our phones. so allow us to move around. We're talking about a whole new island, a whole new perception and concept of who we are and what we do and how we do it. Imagine for me, with me, if you will, the opportunity to say that Nevis is the greenest place on planet Earth. And that is what we are seeking to achieve. Those lofty ideas are what we're seeking to achieve. And I think that the Development Bank, the Caribbean Development Bank, is definitely on board. We have some champions there, like Mr. Joseph Williams. Keep telling him his name is a Nevis name, but he is definitely somebody who has championed this particular project and sought to move it forward. Economic challenges. I think the challenges are well known. We have, yesterday I attended the graduation of the Charlestown Secondary School in the afternoon. I couldn't attend, but it was a graduation of the sixth form. We have hundreds of young people coming into the workforce every year. How do we provide employment? Not government necessarily, but how do we expand the economy to ensure that our people are gainfully employed, that those coming back from university can find gainful employment, that we have a conducive environment for investors, that we have a conducive environment for the growth of small businesses here on the island. I think all of those are challenges that we continue to confront and will continue to confront, but I think we're making good progress. In fact, I will make available to members of the press who are interested some numbers from Social Security that we've only received. I didn't have the opportunity to digest them in time to bring them here, but I do have them, which shows that we have, again, increased in terms of our job numbers on the island. But the increase has been incremental. You know, we're talking sometimes about a 2% or 3% increase. We really need an increase which is 15%, 20%. We need, you know, some form of industry or some injection in the economy which is going to generate 300-400 jobs. That is what I have been trying to look for. And I believe that we have a few options that we should be able to achieve that. But in the meantime, I believe that those are some of the challenges, Ms. Hewlett, that we want to look to. Job creation is going to be critical. I think this geothermal piece can solve a lot of that because it generates a lot of new jobs, the new industry. The movie industry, which is already employing 90 people, I think as we build that out, that too can solve some of those problems. Electoral office, recent protests by the NRP. I'm not sure what the NRP is protesting about. And, you know, I have not sought to use these press conferences to be overly political, but we are in a political season. But I'm not sure what they're protesting about. The only thing I can come up with is the NRP has done its own calculation. I know that they're working with some consultants from Jamaica. And I believe that they've been told that this is the position. You're going to lose the election. It's as simple as that. And I feel that when you know that you're going to lose, you start from early to come up with a narrative as to why you lost. If they were to tell me, Premier Brantley, you're going to run 100 meters against Usain Bolt, from very early I will start to talk about my hamstring problems and the fact that my shoes are too tight and I'm not so sure that my shorts are fitting properly and the track might be wet. Because you have to build a narrative, because the difficulty with the Nevis Reformation Party, they have never confronted the reality of why they lose elections. And every election cycle is the same old, same old. So when they lose, Nevis people are foolish. Nevis people were bribed. Overseas voters is who came in. The court is who gave them the election. It was a sympathy vote for this person or that. It was this reason or that reason. The fundamental problem that NRP has is the candidates. They keep bringing people who people don't like and people don't want and tell them to run. And then you couple that with the fact that they have no message. Constantly going on radio to attack Mark Brantley is not a message. Because at the end of the day, when you have vilified and castigated me, it doesn't provide one job to any vision. It doesn't answer the question of how we solve our energy issues, how we impact cost of living. It does not help our healthcare sector. Doesn't fix a road. Doesn't provide a house. So, what is the point of this constant fascination? I mean, I look in the mirror every morning and I say, you know, nothing really that special. but for here, whole programs dedicated to me. Whole programs. That has been the NRP approach. So if that is your approach, rather than issues and ideas, if that has been your approach, I mean, just this morning I saw something the Honorable Spencer Brand put on social media, where apparently he was being attacked because Hamilton have 2 potholes in the road. And so some agent for the NRP put that out as an attack. And Mr. Brand said, yes, we just had some heavy rains, and we had some difficulties in the roads all across Nevis, not just in Hamilton. But while you're talking about 2 potholes in the road in Hamilton, look at the water tank that was just built in Hamilton, 400,000 gallons. Look at the fact that we had a well there that was out of commission. We put a filtration system in place, and that has put thousands of gallons of water into our system. We fenced the area up there. We put in roads in Hamilton. So, you know this notion of majoring in minors. And that, I think, has been the difficulty. No real issues. They had issues such as the fuel surcharge as a big issue. We have solved that. Employment and unemployment, we're working on that. Crime is down, thank God. So what really are the issues? They're not coming with a plan. And so what they've taken to now is vilifying everybody. So they're now attacking Elvin Bailey. Mr. Bailey has resigned his position as supervisor of elections. Because an election is imminent, we understand that Mr. Peets, the new supervisor of elections, could not possibly be able to handle an election if it were to happen tomorrow. And so Mr. Bailey, I'm told, was asked to assist Mr. Peets. There's no doubt who the supervisor of elections is. It is Mr. Peets. He's been appointed. The Prime Minister consulted with me as required under the Constitution, and Mr. Peets was appointed. I don't know Mr. Peets, but I wish him all the very best. Mr. Bailey has been asked simply to be someone to provide some assistance because Mr. Bailey has experience. He not only has experience here, he has been part of electoral missions dispatched to other countries to observe elections there. Mr. Bailey has lived an unblemished life on this island. And that's the difficulty that I have when, in a desperate effort to try to build a narrative as to why you're losing, you start to tarnish people. I have never heard anybody say Mr. Bailey took up what he didn't put down. No reputation of anything untoward. And I'm going to defend him because I think when public servants give yeoman service to their country, they ought not to be attacked in this way. And the only reason the gentleman is still standing around is really service that he's offering. Because he recognizes a new government, a new supervisor, and if an election comes soon, that new supervisor will need some assistance. That's it. And NRP got march in town. Somebody said that it was actually a troop practicing for sugar mass. Because it can't make sense. And then the thing, and I want to say it here, because the thing that bothered me, members of the press. I was aware, but I looked at some of it online, and I see Hensley Daniel leading the march, who has the distinction of being the only politician in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis declared null and void for electoral fraud by a court of law. I would have asked Hensley to stop home. I would say, Hensley, this one is not for you. You stay home. Still that I hear Hensley anymore, oh, you come and march, march. A man who the court of law, both the High Court and Court of Appeal, telling go home, go sit down, because of electoral fraud. So I really, it's, that old thing about pot calling the kettle black, devil can't correct sin, whichever our grandparents used to use. All of us would have heard them. The NRP is in no position to lecture anybody about electoral matters. And setting up this narrative. For example, what is electoral irregularity, Ms. Hewlett? Because sometimes, you see, if somebody were to say, the Brantley administration is corrupt, sounds wonderful. You then ask them, well, could you pinpoint for us the areas of corruption? No answer. So, the electoral irregularities, what are they? They say, for example, that there has been padding of the voters list. Now, I'm here to tell you that I don't know what used to happen in the past. But no voters list could be padded on the island of Nevis with the level of vigilance that the political parties have. Or I should say should have. Because I know in the CCM, for example, that every single month our agents go to the office, collect the information as to who has been registered, who has been transferred, etc. And we have an opportunity under the law to object. So if I were to see Wakely Daniel's name show up in St. John, I say, but no, I don't know Wakely Daniel. Wakely Daniel, as far as I know, lives in Cotton Ground. What is he doing in St. John's? The law is designed to put an onus on the political parties and on the public to ensure. So if Wakely Daniel goes onto the list and he doesn't belong there, there's a process. And I am starting to wonder if it is that they don't understand the process or they're not interested in engaging in the process. Because the same way they say they don't know where money is spent, it means they haven't read the budget, they haven't read the audited statements that are put out every year. They say, oh, there are electoral irregularities, they don't say what they are. If people are registering and people are going on to the list, then there's a process to deal with that. And so I don't understand what the NRP was marching about, except, as I said, they were and are trying to create a particular narrative. Just in case we lose, just in case Usain Bolt beat me, I don't tell I from early, my hamstring ain't so good. Right? Because what else could they be doing? And for them to lead a march against electoral irregularities is really farcical. It's a joke. It really has to be a joke. And for Hensley to be in the front of the march, it just tells you that they're not serious at all. So we don't see any electoral difficulties, Ms. Hewlett. We wish Mr. Peets all the best, and whatever assistance Mr. Bailey can give to him in terms of guiding him as a new supervisor of elections, we think that that's welcomed and a good idea. Any other questions for me?
Good morning, Mr. Premier.
Good morning.
Shamika Bajin, Von Radio. Thank you for giving us an update on the honorarium and confirming the double salary for civil servants on Nevis. Mr. Premier, the announcement you made previously to civil servants on the island receiving an additional 5% in January 2023, will the government fulfill its commitment in that regard? Question 2, can you give us an update on the city or the installation of the CT scan that is currently at the Alexandra Hospital? When will patients be able to start using it, which will assist them from traveling to St. Kitts? And the bridge next to the Newcastle police station, when can we see some work being done on that? And that's it for me for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Budgeon. The 5% salary to civil servants, that will be done on January 1, 2023, as has been committed, with a further 5% on January 1, 2024, as has been committed. So there's no issue or debate there. The issue of double salary and honorarium and all of that is an entirely separate issue. These were salary increases that were announced. If you recall, when St. Kitts, the former Prime Minister, announced a 10% retroactive, we could not afford it in Nevis. And I didn't shy away from that. I came and I said to the public this was the position. And to manage it in terms of our cash flow, our technocrats advised that we could do 15%, but spread over 3 years. And that is what we've done. So our civil servants in Nevis will have got a 5% this year, retroactive to January. They will get a 5% in January morning, as we say colloquially, and a further 5% in January morning 2024. So there's no doubt about that, and we will budget for that in our budgetary discussions. CT scan, I did give an update on that earlier. to indicate that the CT scan has been calibrated, installed, and that training on it will begin on November 28th, the week of November 28th. So we would expect sometime thereafter. I would hope that by Christmas we have the CT scan available, but I can't tell you categorically no, because that training has to occur, which starts on November 28th. The bridge at Newcastle, that's quite easy to answer because that's part of the road project that we've just embarked on. I mentioned earlier that we've mobilized, and as I said, the road will be from Cliff Dwellers going north all the way to ex-Petrol. So it includes that area. In fact, that's one of the significant areas that we are looking at in terms of this road. And so there's a high degree of design work that has gone into that area right there to prevent, of course, the flooding and the difficulties. And you would know that right there it's also quite narrow. So we are widening the road to ensure that we have some conformity in the island main road throughout the island of Nevis. So I hope that that answers the question that you've raised. Anything further for me?
Hi, good morning all. Beyond Hanley representing BHC Media. Premier Brantley, there have been several armed robberies on island lately. Question is, why is there still an increase in crime in the country while the government has an active program paying for peace? Question number 2, the police and army are unable to identify or catch these armed robbers. However, last Friday, they were in full force with long guns at a peaceful NRP protest. Question is, do you think it's a good look for Nevis, an island that is busy promoting tourism, to have police and army men with long machine guns at a peaceful protest? Question number 3, there is a pay for peace program in St. Kitts and Nevis where the government pays people not to commit crime. On the other hand, there is nothing in place for university graduates who have student loans but are unemployed. Question is, what message do you think this is sending to our young people? Do you think this is a sustainable program for development? Question number 4, according to our constitution, the media is the fourth estate. However, all other areas of government is fully funded, while independent media is not funded. This has serious implications on our democracy, as independent media workers are unable to carry out the people's work effectively. Question is, to save our democracy, will you bring legislation to have independent media fully funded? Final question, will Nevisians who are being paid by the federal government get a double salary on their 10% increase in salary? If so, will you consider paying government workers who are paid by the NIA a double salary on a 10% increase instead of the now 5%? Also, would you consider a payment for Nevisians who are unemployed and will not be receiving anything at all this Christmas? Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hanley, thank you for your questions. You have used some pejorative language, which I think is unfortunate. Paying for peace and this type of language. It's, I think, unnecessary. I've said to you in the past, you either come here as a journalist or as a politician, you make up your mind. If you come as a journalist, you'll be treated as a journalist. If you come as a politician, then you'll be treated as a politician. And the treatment, I think, will be slightly different. I welcome your input here and I welcome your questions, but I think sometimes the way that the questions are framed, I don't know that they admit of an answer that really assists in, I think the language you use, saving our democracy, is the language that you use. We have had some incidents of armed robbery on the island, yes. And the police are very much aware and are engaged in terms of their investigation on that. The last update that I had, the police have good intelligence, and we are hopeful that the police will be able to make a breakthrough. Let me, however, reiterate my posture and my position that I've always taken. Crime is a social problem. And oftentimes, we blame the police, we blame the government, we blame everybody. But a lot of us, Mr. Hanley, sometimes have information that we don't share. And when we don't share the information, it makes it difficult for the police, naturally, to do what they're supposed to do. So I appeal to the police to do more, but I also appeal to the public to do what they can to assist our police in bringing these perpetrators to justice. You said that police had long guns at an NRP protest, and how does that look for an island promoting tourists? I can't speak to that. I don't direct the police. I don't know what threats the police were responding to by having people on standby. I truly can't say. I've heard, I've seen on social media some noise being made about the police having, weapons at this march. Again, I saw no photos or anything of it, so I really don't know. I can't speak to what happened there. But the police in St. Kitts and Nevis, I think, have generally been applauded for acting with restraint. They have no incidents that I'm aware of any allegations against the police acting improperly where we have marches or we have large gatherings of the kind. And maybe the police were out in force because they expected a large crowd. The fact that only a few people showed up might then make it appear that the police overreacted. But that perhaps is more reflection on the appeal of the NRP than on the safety that the police is trying to generate. So if the police expected a large crowd, a Juve type size crowd for the NRP protests, and then the NRP could not bring out the people, then you can't really blame the police for that. But I can't speak for them because I said I was not here. I haven't seen any footage or photographs of it. And all I've heard is this allegation that the police were there. Nobody has said the police did anything untoward. So if they were there, meaning that they were there to keep the peace. They weren't impeding in any way or preventing in any way the activity. So more police than people, that is just a reflection of the fact that the march didn't have anybody attending. You say that we have no programs for young people. What message is it sending that we are, again, you say the peace program. The peace program was designed, as you know, Mr. Hanley, to deal with a specific issue, and that issue was the scourge of violent crime. And the peace program has not been without its difficulties. I myself have had concerns that I've expressed publicly. But by any measure, the peace program has worked thus far in keeping violent crime, which was really bedeviling us, to a minimum. And so we are hopeful that these youngsters who were predisposed in themselves to a life of crime are now looking and saying there's a better way. And that is what the program was designed to do. The program was designed to provide an alternative pathway. So the message that it's sending to young people is a message it's sending to all of society, that it is a response to a problem that you're trying to resolve. And so far, the statistics would suggest that it has worked and is one of those programs, controversial as it is, that I feel provides that alternative pathway, and that was the whole purpose behind it. The media is a fourth estate, you say, under the Constitution. I'm not so sure the Constitution says that, but in any event, we recognize the importance of the media. I believe that you're making a pitch to get some money from the government because you said that we should fund the independent media. I'm not sure that that is the role of the government. One of the things that I've often realized is that you have to frame things very carefully when you put the funding in the hands of the state. You have to frame it very carefully because oftentimes he who controls the funding controls the entity. And so you might want to be careful what you ask for, because if you get government funding, then the question would be, what happens if you start to say things that the government doesn't like? Do they withdraw your funding? Do they hold up your funding? Do they delay your funding? So it might be a model that we can look at in in the future to see whether or not government should be part of providing any assistance to the media. But thus far, it would seem that the media houses seem to be doing okay for themselves. And I'm certainly thankful that we have the opportunity to engage here once a month at least in the exchange of information. 10% salary increase, 5% salary increase. Your question was a little confusing, but we are giving a double salary based on existing salaries. So in St. Kitts, the workers over there got a 10% salary increase. They will get their double salary based on that. In Nevis, the workers got a 5% salary increase. They'll get their salary based on that. Come January morning, the workers in Nevis will get another 5%, compounded, of course, on the 5% that they've already received. And then we hope that if God is so good to us, that in January 2024, I will be able to announce a further 5% to the people of Nevis and the workers in Nevis. So that is the way that it will be calculated. It's based on what is existing, not what is intended. Are there any more questions for me?
Okay, Mr. Premier, I just have 2 more questions for you. It was mentioned this week by your opponent, Dr. Patricia Bartlett of the Nevis Reformation Party, that the last election was rigged or was won by cheating due to the NRP, as claimed by Dr. Bartlett, receiving a totally different list than what your party received, along with other discrepancies. What is your response to that? And there is a road which was recently constructed next to the old building that houses or housed Development Bank in Stony Grove that takes you to the Charlestown Secondary School. Students also use that road, which was once the old bridge. Can the government put something in place as a blockade to restrict vehicular traffic from going through that road, as right now persons are still driving on it, even though there is a no entry sign? And that's it for me. Thank you.
Are there no entry signs on both ends of the road? I'm not sure there are no entry signs on both ends of the road. So there's a no entry on one side. It's a one-way road. That's why there's a no entry side. That's what I thought. The no entry sign on one end because it's a one-way road. As far as I know, it was meant as just a connecting road. As you say, there used to be a bridge there at some point, and Minister Brand and his team decided to put in this. It's a one-way access. Nothing more than that. I would hope that people are not using it recklessly and that we would have no difficulties there with students and vehicular traffic using the road. Dr. Bartlett, Ms. Budgeon, I don't know how to respond to Dr. Bartlett because Dr. Bartlett is as erratic as anybody could be in terms of politics. She's here today. I mean, she was voting for me up to recently. Now she says I'm the enemy, I'm the devil. I don't know how I became the devil overnight, but perhaps because she didn't get what she wanted, that, you know, it's evidence of her personal conviction. I do not know anything about any fake lists or any different lists. On election day, I went to every polling station in my constituency, from Church of God of Prophecy in Cox all the way down to the Charlestown Primary School. Everyone. And seated in those polling stations will be a representative from CCM and a representative from NRP. When you come in to vote, you say, Ms. Budgeon, Shamika is her first name, Shamika Budgeon, and the representative from NRP looks on her list, his or her list. The representative from CCM does the same. In fact, when I went and I filled in for my representative, if I found the name before the one from NRP, I say, oh, number 181. And everybody ticks it off. The person who's in charge of that electoral station also ticks it off. Shamika Budgeon is given her ballot, she goes and votes, and she leaves. You could not have had a fake list or different lists because, as I said, everybody in the room was working from the same list. So this is what I'm saying when I talk about erratic behavior. Why make these allegations which are so easily proven to be false? We just went through an election, and everybody came out of that election understanding the process and understanding what was done. So I don't understand, and part of the difficulty I have, Ms. Budgeon, is that we have persons who I think should be held to the highest degree of probity and be held to the highest degree of responsibility, our politicians. And they go on programs and they say anything. Nobody challenges them. Nobody asks them, well, why you say that or what you mean by that. Because I've just explained to you there could be no possibility of any different lists because everybody involved in that process had the same list. If there was a different list, then arguably when you showed up at the polling station, you should be number 12 on one and number 50 on the next, or your name shouldn't be on one and on the next. That wasn't the case. So I don't know where these pronouncements are coming from, except they're coming from an erratic mind. And I really would want Dr. Bartlett to cease and desist, you know, come up with some ideas. So Bartlett's going around, Dr. Bartlett had a big thing the other day trying to politicize the death of a young woman, saying that the water is contaminated and people are dying because of the water. This is irresponsible. But that's the kind of thing that she just says. Big thing the other day, how children over at Prospect Ivor Walters Primary sitting on the floor because we don't have no chair and no desk. Irresponsible. So I think that we need seriousness. We really do need seriousness. I don't bother to, because I have something that guides me where I say ignore the noise. So I don't really waste too much time on Dr. Bartlett, because I know what Dr. Bartlett's issues are. And in due course, I will deal with what her issues are, because I was her loving cousin when I was doing what she wanted me to do. But as soon as I said I couldn't do any more, I became this person who's terrible for Nevis and terrible, 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 right? So we understand the difference between persons who are motivated because they truly want to serve and those who are really just have an axe to grind. And when you hear the debate, you can tell the difference because they're not talking about ideas to uplift you and the community. They keep coming with this narrative of attacking people, attacking the system, something is wrong, this is whatever. Truth is that Dr. Bartlett did much better than people thought she would. And she's going to do a lot of worse this time around if, in fact, she winds up on the ballot whenever the election is called. So I think that she should say if the lists were somehow defective, then they worked in her favor because she got more votes than all the pundits said she could get. So I don't see what the concern is and what it is they are seeking to achieve by constantly creating and fabricating these stories. I mean, what's the need? Cockroach infestation at Ivor Walters Primary. Nothing goes so. Right? What is the need? What is the purpose? And when each time you say these things and they're proven to be false, premises purchased up at farms for the premier to have a premier's residence. Nothing goes so. They just say these things. Right? And, you know, I just feel that we need to really challenge people and say to people, listen, you want to be a public official. You want to represent me. You want to be in government. So when you say this, what is the basis for you saying that? And I'm sure if those types of questions are asked, you see them start to resign. Because they have nothing at all to support these wild fabrications that they continue to come up with. And I just feel it's unfortunate because our people are educated enough. Our island is now sophisticated enough that we can have legitimate debates in the country. I'm not standing here, Ms. Budgeon, suggesting to you that I am perfect or that this government is perfect. I have never suggested that. I have often said that we are imperfect beings. We are called upon to do a job. There are mistakes made along the way. There are things which perhaps with the benefit of hindsight you could do over, you'll do differently. But at the end of the day, let us have a legitimate debate. We can't debate fabrications and figments of people's imagination. And that's why I use the word erratic, because the kinds of pronouncements that Dr. Bartlett comes up with. I mean, I know she's a vet, and so she has spent a lot of years not having to communicate with humans. So I don't know if that has affected her ability now that she's seeking to communicate with human beings, right? Because, you know, dogs and cats, I suppose, they communicate with her in a different way. I don't know. But those skill sets you can't necessarily take now and apply to humans. You're now talking to humans. And humans have a brain and they're going to ask questions like, well, why you say that? And what you mean by that? And how come you just discover certain things? Because we are not talking about youngsters. If you were dealing with people, Miss Budgeon, who had just come out of sixth form or just finished university, and you would say, well, you know, these are young people, they're on the road, they've just started out. We're talking with retirees and people who are now in the later stages of their lives. Miss Dr. Bartlett is over 60 years old. She's had a full career. She is now coming and telling you she sees poverty in the jurisdiction, in the constituency, and she this and she that and she that. And you ask yourself the question, you just notice all of this? For 61, 62 years you lived in St. John's and you never know that there are poor people in St. John's? And if you didn't know, why you didn't know? And if you did know, what have you done to try to help? Because you soon start to realize that a lot of them now coming are really, as far as I'm concerned, they're looking for something to do. Some people take up crochet, some take up knitting, some take up a sport, golf, whatever. They have taken up politics, right? And that, to my mind, is not how you come to this. This is not child's play. It is not something that is to be taken lightly. It is something where your people are investing their confidence in you. People are saying to you that I want you to put policies in place to make my life better. And if you're not serious, because all you come with is this Nancy stories, then this is not for you. And this is not a second career or something that, let me try my hand. You know, let me see how this thing go. No, this is a serious business. It is serious because it affects people's lives. And I encourage Dr. Bartlett and others to come to the table with some serious issues. What is your position on climate change? What is your position on the economy? How can we generate jobs? How can we deal with crime that Mr. Hanley has spoken about? How can we fix some of the social ills that we have, domestic violence, those kinds of issues? How do we deal with plastics and waste? You hear none of that in the discussion. Mark, do this, Mark, do that, Mark, think it this, Mark, that. They're corrupt. Electoral office corrupt. Talk about my socks and what I cook. Because that is their preoccupation with nonsense. And that is the difficulty, and I think that is why the people consistently reject the NRP. Consistently. And if every election you cost the electorate, for you to say that people were bribed, for example, says something about the briber, that is, I suppose they're alleging that the CCM has bribed people. But it also says something about the bribee, because it says that you have sold your vote for money. Well, what does that say about people that you are asking to vote for you? And that is they cost overseas voters. Our people who happen to live overseas, who they themselves have benefited from remittances over the years and things sent back. We all know, all of us have an auntie or cousin, somebody overseas who sends something for us from time to time. That is how we grew up. And they heap all this abuse on the overseas voters. But where were they Labor Day last September? They were in New York. Why were they in New York? What were they doing? Having meetings with overseas voters. Political meetings. So this is the erratic behavior. You're going to cuss people telling them they come home to vote and they shouldn't do it, but you're going to New York to meet with them. What are you going to New York to meet with them for? And that is why I keep saying that we need in the country a serious political engagement and serious political debate. We don't need all this rah-rah back and forth and all this made-up stories, because at the end of the day, there's no value to them. And they just put out this information, just throw it out there. Create these controversies, and I'm not even understanding sometimes what the controversy is all about. Just yesterday, the CCM representative for St. Thomas's just launched, had a usual event on the block. And this NRP lady went there and acted. I mean, I believe if I were there, I would have called the mental health unit to ask them, could they assist? Because he wasn't acting like somebody who had everything all right. So that was the difficulty. You have people behaving in such an irrational and erratic way, and you want to know why. Why? Because there's no, who could they convince with that type of behavior? Who? And so, my good cousin, Dr. Bartlett, I really don't know what her issues are, but I pray for her, and I pray and hope that she goes fully into retirement after this election, because she won't go beyond this election, and just take it easy and do whatever she has. I've suggested to her, in fact, I sent her a message some time ago and suggested that, you know, since she's so concerned, for example, about employment, why doesn't she open a veterinary clinic and employ a few people? You know, because that's a skill set that is really needed on the island, and she'll be back with animals that she's good with, and she'd employ a few people to generate some economic activity and some employment. So be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Because you and I both know that if all you do is talk about the problem, ultimately, that doesn't help solve the problem. So we need solutions, we need politicians that are focused on how we can move Nevis forward. And thus far, unfortunately, we're not getting that from the other side. I've probably taken a bit too long to answer you, but I just wanted you to hear my views on my good cousin. Any other questions for me? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Bang at midday. I thought we'd go on longer than that. So thank you very much for your comments and questions. This is likely to be the last monthly press conference before the year. We don't normally do one in December. So I want to take the opportunity to thank all of you, to wish you and your families a wonderful Christmas season, and to say to our public servants that we are very happy through our collaboration with the federal authorities to be able to offer them a double salary, and to say to those frontline workers that we are very happy to be able to offer them an honorarium. And of course, as I said, we've extended that to our water taxi operators and our certified taxi operators who are with us shoulder to shoulder during the fight against COVID. So I thank all of you again. The double salary is payable, I think, on the 22nd of November, and we will pay the honorarium on or before the 30th of November. Thank you. Have a wonderful Christmas, everyone. God bless you.
You found the sound. 98.9